Welcome to What You're Missing. This series explains to show watchers exactly what you're missing by not reading the A Song of Ice and Fire book series. Now, like the show, the books start out with 3 rangers going north of the Wall, and you may have remembered this guy. This guy is Waymar Royce. If you look closely, his clothes are much better than his other 2 brothers. And there's a reason for this. He's highborn. He joined the Night's Watch, and no one knows why. His house is a bit of a mystery as well. He's from House Royce, and if you fast forward to Season 4, they're the house that's the main opponents of Littlefinger in the Vale. The Lord of House Royce wears magical armor with runes on it, and the Royces are weirdly all over Westeros, more than any other house. One was friends with Brandon Stark, a couple were married to Freys, one was in Renly's Rainbow Guard. It's a bit weird as they're from the Vale, and most other houses stay put in their kingdoms. Now, Waymar is kind of a dick in the show and dies like a chump, but in the book, he bravely faces the other and says, "Dance with me then." And they have a badass sword fight. It makes one wonder if the Royces know what's north of the Wall. Now, the others look pretty awesome in the show, but in the book they're a bit different. They're armored in crystal. Now, this may not seem important, but in the book it comes up a lot thematically. For example, in the Dothraki Sea, Jorah talks about ghost grass, which is this translucent grass killing off all of the other grass. It kind of reveals that all over the world there are all these mini apocalypses going on that are parallel to the one north of the Wall. Now, the show has some introduction scenes for the characters that aren't in the books. The big thing is the characters are a lot older. In the books, Ned and Cat are in their mid-30s. Cat can definitely still have children, and this comes up as after Ned dies, there's a lot of talk about her remarrying. Robb and Jon are also only 15, which leads to them getting a lot of disrespect at various points in the book. They start out as boys and become men after being hardened in battle. In the show, they pretty much already start out as stoic men. Next comes the execution. Now, in the book, it's actually on a tree stump. The blood is soaked up into the network of trees that fuel the old gods. And when I say old gods, I mean that old man at the end of Season 4, Bloodraven. The first men used to sacrifice people in front of trees, so Eddard's execution spot, though unintentional, is likely providing the same function. Although the show doesn't use a stump, it does use a mystical ring of stones. It seems that this is a first men's sacrifice spot as well. Now, the scene where they find the direwolves is very similar in the book, except Robb is a young boy excited to find puppies, and not an old man brooding over the dead body of a wolf. Now, next we're given an introduction scene for Cersei and Jaime. Now, in the books, Cersei and Jaime look almost identical, but that's not very realistic or practical for the show. The unfortunate thing about this scene is it kind of gives away that Jaime and Cersei didn't kill Jon Arryn. In the books, we're led to believe that Cersei did it for a long time. Now, in the next scene, we have Cat telling Ned that Jon Arryn is dead. The big difference in the book is that when Cat tells Ned that the king is coming to town, Ned is thrilled. Robert is Ned's best friend, but in this scene it's just more gloom and doom. In fact, the whole story of Eddard in A Game of Thrones is about his discovery of Robert's character. He starts out thinking that Robert is great, and slowly decides that Robert's a jerk by the end. In the show, they just seem to start out on rocky terms. After the king arrives, Ned and Robert head down into the crypts of Winterfell. Now, the crypts of Winterfell are where the lords and kings of the north for the past 8,000 years are all buried. The crypts are also one of the biggest mysteries for fans of the book series. Jon, Bran, and Rickon keep having dreams about the crypts. There's quite a few mysteries about these crypts. For instance, if the lords and kings of the north are followers of the old gods, why are their bodies in a crypt? Shouldn't they be buried in front of trees or have their bodies burned like the wildlings? This is an important question because in An Ice and Fire there seems to be some evidence that souls can migrate places. The Northerners believe that the swords on top of the tombs keep the souls locked within the tombs. Interestingly, Bran, Rickon, Hodor, and Osha steal some swords later on. Now, the show cuts back to Tyrion for a moment doing a whore. It should be noted that in the book, Tyrion isn't just a dwarf, he's an ugly dwarf. There is no suave elegance to him, he waddles when he walks. Though weirdly in the book, he has acrobatic abilities. Now back to the mystery of the crypts. For some reason, Eddard's sister Lyanna is in the crypts. Now, the crypts are only supposed to be for lords and kings of Winterfell. Now, Eddard transported her body thousands of miles from the south to put her here, and no one knows why. Now, some people theorize that Jon Snow is actually Neo, Keanu Reeves, Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker. If Jon is Jesus, then Ned is just respecting Mother Mary and putting her in the crypts. However, what's not in the show is that Eddard's brother Brandon is also down in the crypts and doesn't belong there. There's even a scene in the 5th book where a woman in love with Brandon makes a parallel trip down to the crypts to visit his tomb. So Brandon kind of screws up the Mother Mary theory. Now there's another theory that both Brandon and Lyanna knew a horrible secret, and Ned is trying to keep their souls contained so the secret doesn't get out. However, Lyanna doesn't have a sword, so her soul shouldn't be contained. So fans of the book series remain thoroughly stumped about why Lyanna and Brandon are in the crypts. There's one more very important thing about the crypts. It's where Eddard starts feeling really guilty about Lyanna. Eddard keeps remembering promises that he made to Lyanna. Some of them have been kept and some of them have been broken, but no one really knows what they are. Since Lyanna made them from a bed of blood, many people think that this is a birthing bed, and therefore these promises would be about her child. Some people think her child is Jon, others think her child is Dany, some people think she had twins. But at the end of the day, no one really knows what happened with Lyanna and Brandon, and no one really knows what these promises are, and no one really knows what's the deal with the crypts. All we know is that the guilt seems to start in the crypts of Winterfell and grows over the course of Eddard's story. Now we're finally introduced to Viserys and Daenerys. Now in the books we learn that Viserys is Daenerys' only teacher about the Seven Kingdoms. Viserys' knowledge is sometimes so valuable that it saves Daenerys' life, and at other times it seems quite off. For example, Daenerys' dragons would have starved to death without Viserys' stories to her about dragons. But Viserys also tells Daenerys that Rhaegar was the best fighter in the world, which is clearly false. One big question that has fans arguing is where they grew up. Viserys has told Dany it was Braavos, but Dany remembers a lemon tree outside of her window, and Braavos is a cold and rainy place where citrus shouldn't grow. So fans of the book series are left wondering which memories in Dany's head are true and which ones are false, thanks to Viserys. And this is no small mystery. This house with the red door that's supposedly in Braavos comes up over and over and over in the series. Now what's also not explained in the show is Illyrio's relationship with slavery. Take a look at that servant's collar. That's a slave collar. Illyrio is a slaver, and yet the city they live in, Pentos, is a free city. This says a lot about Illyrio's character and his relationship with the city of Pentos. But let's also remember that Dany later smashes the slave trade. Fans of the book are left wondering if Illyrio is really on Dany's side at various points. Now in this introduction to Daenerys, we also learn why Khal Drogo is marrying her. He's marrying her over her Valyrian features. In the book this means violet eyes and silver hair. Now it may be that Khal Drogo just has a fetish, but it's quite possible that Khal Drogo is searching for the perfect girl to fulfill prophecy with. He may be looking for someone to birth the stallion that mounts the world. If he is looking for the right womb, this completely changes the interpretation of his inspection of Daenerys. This is not a lustful connection between two people, it's realization that this woman can birth a savior. Now in the show they make Viserys creepy on top of being abusive. This is actually the exact opposite of the book where Viserys says he's not attracted to Daenerys. Daenerys, on the other hand, had always expected to marry Viserys, and she's quite puzzled that she's marrying Khal Drogo. Now in the show, Dany likes hot water, just like in the book. Targaryens seem to have a higher threshold for heat. However, they do still burn, so it's a mystery how Dany survives the pyre. Now in the book, Illyrio is morbidly obese and quite jovial, but most significantly, he's a follower of the Red God, or at least claims to be. A Red Priest even attends Daenerys' inspection. Meanwhile, back in Winterfell, Uncle Benjen arrives. Now in the show, Jon tells Benjen that he wants to join the Night's Watch, and Benjen is reluctant but somewhat open to the idea. In the book, Benjen is very much against it. This is significant as Jon mentions that he's been talking his decision over with Maester Luwin. And later, Maester Luwin omits Benjen's feelings about Jon joining the Night's Watch when he's talking to Eddard. So it may be Maester Luwin's doing that Jon joined the Night's Watch. Now after a party scene, we then have Maester Luwin arrive with Lysa's message. Now in the show, the message arrives by a rider in the night, which actually doesn't make much sense. Lysa's gonna send a rider through the Vale alone where all those clansmen live? This is also an unfortunate change, as this is a key part of the Jon Arryn murder mystery. Luwin finds the message in a box in his observatory. Because there aren't any other travelers from the south, Luwin assumes that the person that left the box must be in the king's party. So Lysa must still have connections in King's Landing, someone that she trusts very much. So a reader could figure out that this message was coordinated by Littlefinger. Now the show handles the reception of the news differently as well. Ned is ready to take the job, but the message makes Catelyn want him to not take the job. Against Catelyn's wishes, he goes to King's Landing anyways. Now this of course makes no sense at all. Lysa and Littlefinger don't know Ned. They don't know how he would react. They do know Cat though, so if Cat is the type of person to not want Ned to go, they should assume that would be the outcome. So why send a letter to not make Ned part of their plans? The book makes a lot more sense. In the book, Ned is ready to not take the job. The letter then convinces Catelyn that he must. So the letter has a function. It's to bring Ned into the fold. Now back to Daenerys. The big thing that's missing from the show is that Daenerys has dreams. She's a scared, timid girl, but then she has a dream about dragons and her brother and some vaginal blood, and all of a sudden she's weirdly not scared. This is a big deal as she wins some respect by suddenly being able to ride her horse like an expert. She also loses her fear when she's having sex with Khal Drogo, making it a pleasurable experience for her. Another big difference between the show and the book is Jorah. In the show, Jorah is kind of a gentleman. In the book, he's kind of a big hairy brute. And the biggest difference is how he treats Viserys. Jorah almost tries to piss Viserys off in the book, and Illyrio just smiles about it. It really makes one question if Illyrio and Jorah ever had any intention of putting Viserys on the throne. Which finally leaves us with Bran's climb. Now in the book, Bran is being watched by Bloodraven. He starts in the Godswood and crows follow him as he climbs up his tower. Some fans even argue that Bloodraven wanted Bran to fall. In the book, Bran climbs his tower and hears Jaime and Cersei talking about politics. A lot of this plays into the Jon Arryn murder mystery. Jaime and Cersei start having sex, but Bran goes quite unobserved until Cersei spontaneously opens her eyes and stares right at Bran. Bran assumes he made a noise, but we don't actually know if he made a noise. It may be that one of Bloodraven's crows made a noise, or perhaps Bloodraven got into Cersei's head and made her wake up and look over at Bran. It's hard to say as Bloodraven's powers and intentions have not been fully revealed in the books. And that's episode 1.1, to be continued in episode 1.2.